Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Hero's Journey podcast, the sacred space where you can kiss your doubt goodbye and embark with confidence and love on your quest to become the hero on your journey back to wholeness. Together with brilliant minds, today with James, I'm so excited. We venture into the unknown to revive and mend what is torn and to patch what is missing. And today we embark on a journey into the unknown with James, as I already mentioned. Like all the other interviewers so far, I have met him through the Dr. Joe community, especially through the youth community. And I was initially introduced to you by your wonderful testimonial that is also online on YouTube. I will link it down in the description box later so people can find it. But that's, I think, the first time where I saw you, and then I noticed, oh wow, you're in the youth community. And then also I met after I talked to Sienna, and she's a friend of mine. She said, "Yeah, you should ask James. He's there and everything." I was like, "Yes, I'm gonna ask James if he wants to be on this podcast." And yeah, here we are. So again, as I wanted to say, it's just your testimony really has left me in awe because you're about my age, and then just seeing someone who has transformed his life so massively. Just for a bit of background knowledge, we will give you more details later on, but you've been in the past been diagnosed with a brain tumor, and when I see testimonials on YouTube, especially that are uploaded from Joe Dispenza's YouTube channel, there are some people they have some slight issues and just overcome it. And there are many, many people with quite some heavy diagnoses. And just the imagination for myself, like being told by a person of authority, like a doctor, when we look at this old model of consciousness and like how to heal and how we can support another to heal, and being told you have a terminal illness, I think that it must have been a pretty tough start for you to overcome all of these doubts and fears. I mean, I've been in the past, I was sometimes dealing with, especially after my first retreat, with panic attacks. But it's probably that's I couldn't imagine how that must have felt to be in your position. But the more it inspires me, and the more it just gives me so much hope, and not really hope, it gives me a sense of knowing what beautiful things are possible if you surrender to love, and if you go and meditate and go within and change those limited beliefs and habits, and then these big problems, they sort of shrink because more and more people are doing the uncommon, and that is such a beautiful blessing. So I'm so excited for you to be here and to share all of your knowledge, and just sharing your adventure and your journey back to wholeness. So welcome, James.
Thank you, Anne. My pleasure. Thank you for doing this. This is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to, just for the people who maybe not have watched the testimonial, before we start or maybe you want to tell us about like the diagnosis and how your life was before the diagnosis. Like, where did the journey start? Where did it start actually?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it was sort of towards the end of 2021, the last couple of months, and I just ran the Paris Marathon. Was loving life. I was working and traveling, and everything was going well. And yeah, I started getting migraines. And if I really look in detail back to those times, I had slight other symptoms, like my eyesight was slightly altered because of the tumor that I wound up getting diagnosed with. But yeah, I got a scan that showed my brain to be in an abnormal state, and then I got more scans, and then I wound up right around Christmas getting or having brain surgery, whereby because of where the tumor was, they couldn't operate. It was behind the blood-brain barrier, I believe is the scientific term for it. but they basically allowed the synovial fluid, which was giving me really bad migraines, which was the main symptom, which
Mm-hmm.
sort of pointed me to let me know that something wasn't right, and led me to getting scans and everything. I had surgery, whereby they took a biopsy and they poked. The way I explain it is that they poked a hole in my brain to allow the fluid to drain naturally,
Mm-hmm.
which was successful, and I'm so grateful for. I think it was King's in London who did the surgery. Feels like an absolute lifetime ago now.
Mm-hmm.
But they were impressed, very, very, beautiful beings for doing that. Because without them, without many people, I'm not here. But can't disregard the part that the medical doctors played
Yeah.
in saving my life and enabling me to be where I am now. Um, they done this surgery, and then I had my prognosis in early 2022, which was a grade 4 diffused midline glioma, which is a cancer commonly found in really young children
Oh, okay.
for whatever reason. So the prognosis generally is not great. It's usually months. But because I was a bit older and they could give me chemo and things, it was a year or two, I think. But yeah, they didn't give me a chance, really, which was, it really was quite scary. I don't think I've fully embraced the feeling. I was very numb to it all. And still am, probably, to a degree. I still haven't cried, shown my emotion in that sense
Mm.
getting getting the diagnosis. When they told me what it was, I laughed. I couldn't cry, which is quite sad. But yeah, I've not been able to cry, which is definitely some sort of blockage somewhere. And I still hope to change that up in the future. But yeah, so then, I mean, that obviously shook my world quite significantly. I was quite sad, and I'm sat on my bed here, and for a month or two I found it hard to get out of bed. Just didn't have much get up and go. I didn't have much enthusiasm, just because what was there for me to live for at that point. But thanks to the community around me, I said it on the stage in the testimony, and I will never not um, make a point to outline how key community and the people you surround yourself with.
Mm.
And I mean, I've been so blessed with beautiful souls in all facets, in all areas of my life. My parents, and friends and family. My dad, I'll always remember he was just sat at his laptop all day searching ways, different supplements, diets, all 3D things to try and help me get better and it prolong my life, I guess, and try and sort the issue. So they never surrendered to the idea that I wasn't going to be here past a year or whatever.
Mm.
But the way we got into Joe's work, which obviously was the way in which I ended up being whole and healed and back in love with life, more in love with life than I ever had been before. I went to see a charity through a friend, a brain tumor charity, and they recommended I get intravenous vitamin C to help me through chemo, which I was also on at the time. And I went to a clinic, so a scientific clinic, whatever. And the doctor there, who I'm good friends with now, she allowed me to go on the intravenous vitamin C. But moreover, what she did, she recommended Joe's work. She gave a personal testimony of her friend, and Joe talks about this lady, Lorna,
Mm.
often a lady who had a stroke and lost vision in her bottom peripherals in both her eyes, and in one meditation on Brighton Beach, had an experience with energy and got her vision fully back, which just blew my mind. And as I said also on the stage, I didn't believe that for a second. I just thought it sounded like bullshit, for lack of a better term. But again, the whole idea of community being so key rings true with this story, because without my dad, who was in the room when I was having this meeting with Dr. Sophie Schotter, who recommended Joe's work, he was like, I remember getting in the car and he was like, I was still wallowing in the pity of going through chemo and just going through this whole experience. And he was like, yeah, I feel like we've come across something here. And he did a lot of research, started meditating himself. And I did it. I mean, because of my prognosis and how bad that was, I had no choice. I would never have done it if it wasn't as bad as it was. So I started doing the work, and then I went to my first week long a few months after in London, which is, I guess looking back now, is a bit of a synchronicity that the week long. Well, that's the only week long I've known to be in London. During the time I've been into Joe's work, it was like one train away from where I live, whereas every other week long I've been on has been across the world. So yeah, that's how I guess I got into it. I think that more or less covers that story.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. That already sheds a lot of great insight. So, just as a little recap, you go through chemo and everything, and then you finally, or what means finally, you come across different modalities, and then you come across Dr. Joe, where you sit a lot with yourself when meditation. So, I'm curious, what came up for you when you started this journey going within and just seeing, okay, what emotions or what beliefs are stuck in there. Because what really, really draw me to your testimonial, what I really, really liked is you didn't like meditating at the very beginning. You, I remember you said you just like forced yourself through it, or you just like you did it because, well, you just did it because you there was nothing really other working, so you might as well just do it. And for me, for some reason, that is so relatable. I think this is very relatable for many people when they first go within, and then you have all these things coming up, and you're like, why am I even doing this? I talked to Philip the
Yeah,
other day, who was battling OCD at the time, and he also said like that was like for a long time he did not enjoy it because it gets louder. Those emotions or those fears, they get louder because you're looking straight at them, and then it's time to change them, and it can be very challenging. But I love it at the same time because it just shows that you, even though it feels hard and it can be somatically, physically, emotionally very, very uncomfortable to sit with yourself, but then hearing at the same time that, for instance, Philip has overcome OCD, and then other people who heal, and then also you, that is such a great inspiration and just also such a statement. So I would love to hear about your journey when you first turned within, what you came across and how you found the grace to face and just overcoming all of that.
yeah, sure. That's a good question. And I often, because now I find myself encouraging people to do it all over the shop, whether they've got a health issue like me or whatever. I always talk about, yeah, my induction into the work, and yeah, I would say it took me a good month or so, maybe a bit longer, for me to feel any benefit or feel like it was working at all. I didn't feel anything. I think, and I still to this day assign a good meditation with an experience that doesn't quite make sense in the 3D, whether it's a feeling in my head or in my body, around my body, or yeah, just something that doesn't quite line up and make sense in the 3D, Newtonian physics. I don't know if that makes sense, but for example, one of the first experiences I had that didn't really make sense, that kind of led me to thinking, maybe something's actually working and I'm not just shutting my eyes for no reason. was
Mm.
just, it felt like someone was tapping me on the shoulder and no one was there. I just thought,
Mm.
That's odd," amongst other things. And then I started seeing colours when my eyes was shut and patterns and things like that. So that, yeah, because for a long time it just felt like I was closing my eyes and thinking, which is
Mm.
in a way what it is, but it didn't feel like anything was happening, for lack of
Mm.
a better term, if that makes sense. Um, but I think that, and if I'm honest, I believe that was the case because I had this real belief that this was just rubbish and didn't do anything and had no, I didn't believe in it, which is not a good way of approaching this work. You need to almost have a belief, sort of fabricate belief for sort of external symptoms and for you to feel anything. I think belief is a big part. I'd be interested to hear what you believe about that, whether that's something you've encountered, because I think I've come up against belief recently-ish, which is just crazy, and I've beaten it. I've beaten it again, which is great, and I'm believing more than ever. But yeah, at the start I struggled with belief, and then because of that I struggled meditating willingly. I had to do it just. My dad or mum would have to remind me, "Have you done your meditation today?" And it got to the point I started enjoying meditation, which, as I said on the stage, I think is such a good place to be because, I mean, for example, today I've already meditated for 2 hours, and I'll meditate far longer as well. I've got not much on today, so I've got nothing
Mm.
better to do than to sit with my eyes shut and get moving with the meditations. It's a beautiful place to be. But yeah, I guess it just took a while for me to believe in it, believe in myself, which I know Joe makes a big point because you see
Mm.
these testimonies and they're there for everyone to see, whether it's someone like me who's beaten a terribly strong, quote unquote, I guess, health crisis, or someone who's come into a load of money and has become abundant. It's kind of hard to accept it as the truth unless it happens for you. So it's a case of believing that it can happen for you because, as Joe says, no one is special enough for this type of work not to work for you. We're all humans, I think.
Mm.
So yeah, the quicker you can believe in the work, the quicker you will reap the rewards of the benefits of doing the work.
Mm. Amazing. Awesome. So let's say you sit there and you kind of, it sounds almost like you overcame it, or you surrendered like organically because your parents expected you to somehow like meditate, so you do it. What else can you do? And then you sit there, you have a lot of thoughts running, and then you might as well, if I sitting here, I might as well just give my best and just try it. That sounds how, for me, how organically it kind of evolved, and you believe within. um so would you like to share what emotions were very dominant when you first kind of sit down, and was it hard for you to overcome it then once you decided to actually give it a shot and just like do your meditations for real? And um let's say from a scale from 1 to 10, like you enter, you before and after the meditation, was it always worlds apart, or was it like a steadily progress? Because I noticed for some people, they go in and then you go out and you feel completely amazing. For some people, they don't really notice a lot of change straight after the meditation, but they notice that they react differently in life. And then for some people, they go in to the meditation maybe not feeling that well, but then getting out a tiny little bit better. So how was it for you?
Yeah, from what I remember, I believe the second part. I think that the example you gave there, where you'd feel a little bit better coming out. I wouldn't finish the meditation and be jumping around. It would be, yeah, a case of me probably, yeah, feeling slightly a little bit better. And yeah, so yeah, no big. um, jumps in, I guess, consciousness, in emotion. But yeah, there definitely were some meditations that felt more potent in energy and more, and as if I had made a bigger jump, and potentially then, and this is maybe a guess at how I would have felt at the time because I can't remember exactly. I remember certain meditations and certain experience, certain coherence healings and things that I could go into if you guys want. Uh, but for the most part, most day in, day out sort of meditations, whether it's a blessing of the energy center or tuning into new potentials, which were the sort of more or less the crux of my practice day in, day out. Yeah, I'd sort of come around. I mean, even to this day, you'd come around and be like, right, I've got the work done. That was a good effort. But yeah, I think it's probably a part of the practice I could get better at. Where I know Joe says, and it's something I need to, I'm still not amazing at this work. I'm better than I was a couple of years ago, but there's always room for improvement. Not to get up until you feel different, you feel changed, which I know is quite an ambiguous statement. What does feeling change actually mean? I might feel hungrier or like I need the toilet. That might be change, but that's not change I'm after. I want to feel change in the way I want to feel change. So yeah, so I guess having patience with yourself. But yeah, I wouldn't say every time I finished meditation I felt drastically different. I'd say it felt great that I'd done the work and I felt the elevated emotions that I wanted to um, come to as far as when I get my health issue sorted. That's how I want to feel. To feel like that was great and reminding my body of how I want to feel. And I know that it's doing good work in itself, just feeling that way. But had I fully changed, probably not. But I guess that's the day in, day out work. Meeting people at the retreats who have had health crises or health issues, complications for years and years and years. But just doing the work day in, day out, because I think the way I got into the work through a lady who got rid of her blindness in one meditation was always kind of a baptism of fire in a way, as far as you hear this story and you're like, wow, well, if I do one good meditation and I won't have to worry about my health because it will just go. And I still believe that's definitely possible. But I guess I was always looking for it in my own story, my own journey. But then I met, I can, a story that comes to mind when I'm talking about this sort of the experience is a beautiful lady from Hawaii who had, and I don't know the exact name of the disease that she had, but she would she would spend up to 80% of the day with her eyes shut, without, without wanting to, and just doing the work over and over and over and over again. She didn't have that anymore, and like when I met her, you wouldn't have been able to tell that she had this issue. So, and Joe does talk about it. You can have these amazing one crazy event and get rid of the health issue you're battling, or you can do it over time with sort of a dosing effect. So, and that's, I guess, another reason this work is just sensational. There's many ways in which you can heal, not just the sort of phenomenal events where someone will come out of one meditation and have their eyesight back.
Yeah, and you never know what the journey before has, like, what has led them to this moment. I guess it's just the level of surrender that you bring to the table, or trust that eventually then can lead to those instant feelings, or just having no expectations. I don't know. I'm making stuff up. I would love to know the science behind those instantaneous healings, but I guess it's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joe does touch on it with sort of the coherence of if you can become very coherent.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. But
Definitely.
yeah, yeah, I think it's quite a nice knowing that you can achieve your intentions in both ways. You know, sort of a one and done, but also an over time sensation, if that makes sense. You don't have to just achieve it in one meditation, which is good because you'd lose hope, I think, quite quickly if every time you
Yeah.
finish a meditation and you realize you weren't healed, you'd be, oh, it's not working. But
Yeah.
it sort of works behind closed doors, which was, yeah, quite a nice thing to think about when you were meditating, and still is to this day.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you for sharing and also naming these other examples. So, um, when did you notice that you started to get better? Was it you were just feeling lighter? Were you thinking differently, or when did you notice that your affirmations that you've been telling yourself in the meditations alongside with the elevated emotion, when did you notice that was like a shift, or like those wheels start to turn and like you starting to running different programs? Yeah, maybe you can share a little bit about
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. Thank you for asking. Uh, I believe it was. I want to say. See, these time frames all get a bit muddled up.
that.
But there was. I had a coherence healing remotely. I was uh, getting a coherence healing, and I felt energy where the tumor was. And at this point, the I was still on chemo, I believe. So yeah, I guess that's part of the story. But most of my symptoms just disappeared after that healing, and I was like, "Wow, it's gone," um, which was a great feeling. But I had a scan quite soon after, and the tumor was growing, so they took me off chemo, which I was so grateful for. Well, I'm so grateful for looking back, but it was quite confusing at the time. But then I
Mm,
guess when I knew that was a way in which I guess I could sort of go sort of take a cause and effect type view on the meditation, because I had a healing one day and the next day when I woke up, all my most of my symptoms just dropped off, and I was like, oh well, that sort of makes sense that it's gone. But unfortunately, the scans didn't show this, which, like I said, I'm grateful because it enabled me to come off chemo. But then
mm,
quite soon after that, uh, things started working out for me as far as other um, some of my other symptoms, namely my eyesight, it improved in a week long, and then my scan started improving after that as well. So it was all part of, I guess, the journey, and I guess I had to have that bad scan to take me off chemo to prove to everyone that you don't need to be on chemotherapy.
mm.
Per se, it helps people. I'm not going to knock it. It helped me for a time, but it stopped working, and I've not been back on it since, and I don't plan on going back on it ever again.
Wow. Wow, that sounds really beautiful. So, and when you have had those, like you had your relief of some symptoms going away, and it also showing in your scans, and then how did you keep yourself aligned? Like, was there still, what was your family and friends or like the doctors? They probably were relaxing too, but were there some times where you had to did you start questioning it, or how did you keep yourself in check? Was it like a conscious effort that you had to do, or was it somehow organically this belief growing from you inside out, let's say, because you've been seeing the changes and you got more confidence? Or were there some times where the old self was coming back and just like couldn't believe that, holy shit, like I actually did it? Is that really real? I'm sane? Is that really happening, or am I am I making this stuff up? So I would love to hear. I would love to hear it because sometimes
Yeah.
I can only speak for myself, but I also notice some uh, that if I get comfortable or if I see results, like I sort of get comfortable, and then I really have to pay attention to not default back into patterns. So I've been hearing from other people that sometimes when you get too comfortable or too stressed about everything, that of course you default back, or so it's an in or just even integrating that you that's just the fact that you've done something so miraculous, something
Mm.
so cool. Yeah, how did you keep yourself aligned, and how did you digest everything of that? Was it just natural, or were there some times
Yeah,
when you had to stood up for yourself again?
yeah. I mean, there was a time where, yeah, that time the scan showed growth, and I've had a sort of similar situation come up recently-ish, and it's just having a knowing inside. I mean, I wrote it all down recently as well, whereby it's just there's unshakable evidence to suggest that this work works, whether it's for me, for you, for whoever. You know, the science, the testimonials, my own testimonial. There's nothing there's nothing, well, there is enough evidence out there to suggest this works, unfathomably works. So you just have to tune into that belief, which I definitely found hard for a while. But for the first time, when I had that small growth, despite having a good healing and feeling good, I don't know. I remember just having an unshakable belief and knowing that I was going to be okay, and I have that back now, which is great. Um, and yeah, I guess that belief really helped, and then quite quickly the results started to come through, because yeah, with the cancer and things like that, despite what I might say and feel, it's sort of the scans that unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, dictate how people around you, family, friends, are feeling and thinking about the situation, which is, yeah, fair enough.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's I think also important to hear for other people how to carry yourself through times where it's not necessarily depicted in your outer reality, but you just feel like, yeah, I think I'm gonna be fine. Like I don't know how, but I think I'm just gonna be good.
Yeah. For me, it was the fact that the work was based in science. I think
Mm,
that's, it's no weird stuff. And then the testimonies are just fantastic. Yeah, and then my own testimony, and just knowing that there is a consciousness out there that is there to help you. You just have to do the
mm,
work, and I don't ever miss a day, because I'm not an idiot. I am an idiot, but not in that sense.
mm.
I know what's good for me. If I do one thing in a day, it'll be a meditation. Before I do anything.
Anything else?
Yes, man.
That's cool. Well, yeah, that brings me to a topic where what situations, because you just mentioned the one thing that you do is like before doing anything else, like doing meditation.
Yeah.
How did you make sure, or just were you also, I wouldn't say forced, but how did you then make decisions that were in alignment, where you put in positions where you really had to do some bigger decisions, or was it just like flowing everything so far? So for your own health, or like how you want to show up, or how you have conversations with other people, or yeah.
I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Okay, so for instance, sometimes Dr. Joe talks a lot about, okay, you stand up from your meditations and then you should stay in that state. So how do you want to show up in that? You have to make decisions that are according and in alignment to the future that you want to do. So I'm wondering, because especially for people who maybe have some health issues that are especially impacting them, maybe even on a physical level, or like they cannot do that much. So how was that for you? How did you decide to show up? Was that a
Yeah, it's a tough part of the work for sure, because it's almost faking it till you make it. I know Joe doesn't like to use that uh, saying, but I know colleagues of his, such as Bruce Lipton or Greg Braden, I can't remember which, they use that term. But it is a case of faking it and fabricating to your body and to yourself how you're feeling and how you want to be, I guess, in a sense. Um, how did I do it? I guess, yeah, I struggled with it as well, and I'm still working on it. Um, but it's a case of, yeah, just reminding yourself as often as possible. I think most people that know me would say I'm quite a positive person generally, and I've been afforded that because of the people around me. And despite everything I've gone through, I've been so fortunate in so many cases. You know, you see so many testimonials where people have lost so much, which is just so hard to fathom, and I'm so grateful. Um, you know, my working situation has been so great, and amongst other things, family, people around me have been so positive. Um, and just my general um, situation could have been so much worse. So I'm so grateful for
mm,
that. But as far as staying conscious of things like that, I guess like anything, it's a work in progress, and it's one I'm still working on now. But it's just being aware. Yeah, I couldn't give you a hack on how to work on that, but just yeah, it's something I'm still working on. So just trying to remind yourself as often as you can
mm,
to be conscious and
mm,
to realize your environment, how you think, how you act, and how you feel is so key, and that is what dictates how you turn up, and how your health will inevitably be if you're working on a health
mm,
predicament. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a great answer for this, but yeah, I guess it probably comes down for me to the environment that Joe talks about, the environment that you surround yourself with, how you think, how you feel, and how you act, and then just becoming aware of that day in, day out,
mm.
and then just going from there. I guess I think that would probably be my answer. Just reminding to think positive, even if it doesn't feel that way, even if those feelings you know you should feel don't feel
Mm.
perfectly accurate or true. Just know that it's a good thing to do, I guess.
Also, yeah, I remember when Philip was talking about something similar. So when he had to battle those thoughts, he would kind of drop into his body and just sensing his body and sensing space around him. To because sometimes you cannot necessarily change your outer environment, so you really have to change your internal state. So is that what you did too? Like it was just focusing on your heart and just like becoming aware? Or for a person who has never done anything like meditation or some practices to become more conscious, how would you describe it? What you did in exactly those moments you wake up or you go through your day and then suddenly you notice your energy goes down, like you start these familiar emotions come back to you and maybe you have some negative thoughts. So how would you then, what would you do to change this moment?
Yeah, I mean, writing things down is always definitely a way to go about this.
Mm,
Not something I've done amazing amounts of, if I'm honest. But yeah, for sure, writing, journaling, Trying to think how I approached that. But yeah, just realizing your thoughts, becoming aware of them, that's a very powerful part of it. And realizing that you aren't your thoughts. I always remember feeling that thought and realizing that, oh, well, yeah, I can think anything I want doesn't mean it's true. Therefore, if I'm feeling something negative, then that's also not true.
Mm.
So I guess, yeah, that's probably a good point. But yeah, just realizing how powerful your thoughts are. That's a big part of this work. But yeah, realizing that you aren't your thoughts per se. If you think a bad thought or a thought you don't want to think, that's not necessarily the truth. You can then just push that thought away and be like, well, that's just a thought. I'm not my thoughts. And then change that thought to a thought you'd rather feel and you know would be better for you. Going about it that way, just writing down thoughts that you don't want to think and writing down thoughts you do want to think, as Joe touches on a lot of the time. Yeah, I guess doing that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, because that's always great to hear what people do in that exact moment.
Quite a potent moment for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Then just now, like, what you've learned so far, or when you reflect sort of on that, and then um, what are you currently, where are you currently at, or what are you currently not trying to, what are you currently creating, or what are you currently noticing, in what direction do you want to develop, like emotionally and just with your thoughts and with your behaviors?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I've recently been tuning into wholeness and freedom. So recently I had a scan that showed that the tumor might be back in a really small early stage of growth, which I'm grateful for. Probably hurts me to say that because I obviously wish it wasn't there, because I had a good scan that showed there was nothing there, or just scar tissue, and the scar tissue's basically changed shape, I think. So yeah, I want to become whole, free of this disease, so I can then go on to help people, which is what I want to end up doing, because this work is just the best. It's so powerful and it's so accessible for people. Unfortunately, not. It's accessible in that anyone can do it. You just have to have a human body, which most people do have. But unfortunately, not very accessible, as far as it's not widely known quite as much as I kind of want it to be, and I believe it should be,
Right.
for a better world generally. So yeah, I want to get my health in perfect order, which I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will come sooner rather than later. I feel great in myself at the moment. So I'll get a scan soon, and once that shows that there's nothing to worry about, I'll move on. And yeah, I'm looking to join the NCS program. That's my plan. So that's the path I guess I want to take, if that answers the question.
Wow, that sounds amazing. For the people who don't know NCS, I think it's called Neuro Change Solution. It's a separate, or like another company run by Dr. Joe, who he is educating people to, I wouldn't say, is it coaches or what is it? It's like a coaching license, or like a program where he delivers all his knowledge about um, how the brain and heart works and how transformation works, so that those people can bring it to companies. I'm not sure if it's specifically to companies or if you just can um, um, teach this work in any type of field, but basically he briefs you very well, and it's, I think what I've heard of, it's like a very cool but very intense but very awesome course that you do, and then you can go out in the world and just start teaching this knowledge to other people or companies or whatever you want to. And that's also a dream of mine, to be fair.
Yeah.
Doing the NCS. certification. And oh my gosh, I have met a lot of people and it sounds really, really amazing. But I think it's in person, is it? Also.
I believe so. I think, yeah.
Mm,
There's a few options, but yeah, for the most part, it would be like most of Joe's work. I think it
mm,
would be, yeah, in person.
probably in person. Oh, that sounds beautiful. Well, I'm so happy to hear that. I think you just, because you're a living, walking evidence, so you would be just the perfect person to do that. And I can't wait to see you doing that. And I agree, that's also one reason why I started this podcast, to organically lead people to, or like get them familiar with this type of work, because sometimes even if we learn about all this knowledge, emotionally sometimes it's difficult to embrace, um, and I want people to allow themselves to have like a space where they can organically can dissolve that that doubt, because testimony is the greatest evidence. Like it's powerful to hear a person that is talking about themselves healing something. And when I listen to you, you sound so chill, and you it sounds like, yeah, just, I just do the work and I just do it. It's not rocket science. I just like I read it, and I'm doing it. And yeah, sometimes it's a bit challenging, but I do it anyways. And just doing it. So that's
Yeah.
what that's I love it. I love it so much. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
You're
And
welcome.
just also to dissolve maybe some expectations that people have of what it looks like, because I remember when I saw those people, and hearing those people when they had their incredible healing. Some of them are screaming, some of them are, I don't know. Have you ever had like those crazy mystical experiences, or has your healing just like kind of sneaked into your life without any crazy experiences, or how was that for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say I haven't had those experiences. Um, yeah, for me, it snuck in, I guess, in the words that you used there, which I really like.
Awesome.
But
So,
again, that, like we touched on earlier, there's so many ways in which your healing can arrive, whether it is in a format such as a big experience where you're shouting or shaking. You know,
mhm.
I've shaken and I've felt vibrations in my body, but nothing quite like I've also seen on retreats where people are shouting and screaming across the room. I haven't had that. That
Okay.
looks cool, and as I said on the stage, I'd love to experience it.
Yeah.
But I haven't, as of yet, uh, experienced that.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I think that's important, because sometimes I think people, including myself, I noticed that subconsciously I thought, oh, I need to have this crazy experience before I can experience a healing or a greater update in my life or whatnot. So that is so awesome. That a reminder that if you just let go, you set your intention, you let go, and you just go into your meditations and just don't expect a lot, and just it will just energy will do its work. And then also some, what I also see, some misconceptions, so about people who heal. I also, that's also a question that I'm asking to kind of reprogram myself, because I remember I saw this woman on a retreat, and she had a brain heart romance going on, and she was feeling very great. And then I saw her later on, and she I don't know why, she it's kind of funny, it's kind of stupid what I thought, but so we were in the retreat was in Turkey, and she went to the toilet, and I don't know, something was there. It was clean, but I think because sometimes the paper goes into the bin, doesn't go it doesn't go into the toilet itself or something, because of, ocean water and stuff like this. In some countries you have to put the thing into the bin and not into the toilet. And I think she didn't really like that. And I was like, she had a healing, or she had something really cool going on. Why is she like bothered by that? Shouldn't she be in love and life or whatnot? So the question that I have is like, do you still at times have emotions of, let's say, anger, or it's not like these emotions disappear fully, it's rather how long they last? Or like, how would you say is your emotional well-being or your emotional intelligence, or just after those experiences, are you still human?
I can confirm I'm still human. Yeah, I don't think I react all that much to things
Mm.
generally. I'm not the most emotionally intelligent person. But yeah, I don't react all that much, if I'm honest. I can't say I get angry all that much. Yeah, but I'm blessed whereby what I see every day doesn't, I do the work so much. I guess I could say that,
Mm.
the reality I create doesn't, and it does cause me to get frustrated. Whether it's this result that I had, it was like a bit confusing.
Mm.
Yeah, I just know. I guess I've probably programmed myself to not react, um, because I know it doesn't do anything positive for me. Um,
Okay.
and I've struggled as well because I know you do need to feel certain feelings. Um, I went through a breakup with my now ex girlfriend. She's beautiful, and I struggled with emotions through that. So I know, and that's what I mean by that. I'm not emotionally intelligent per se. Um, and I still need to master some certain emotions, not necessarily anger. I'd say I've got a fairly good grip on that, but other emotions I probably could get better at. But experience teaches you that.
Mm.
So in time, I'm sure I will master this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. That's very beautiful. And then just to maybe, how is your uh I mean, I agree that there is a stage where you get more aware of your emotions and they somehow get louder, but the more you practice to calm down, the less you relate to your life, and that's really a good place where you're in. So I think your emotional well-being is very good at this place. I wouldn't worry that much
Thank you.
about that. So, um, but what is your relationship with life right now? Like, if you compare it, old James and new James, like how do you feel better connected with life, or do you just feel, of course, there might be some things that happen where okay, you can get a little bit frustrated, but what is your greater relationship with life right now? What is your connection to the divine, or just your connection to yourself, your self love, or your relationship to yourself? How is that?
That is such a good question. Thank you for asking. How is my? I'd say it's very good. You know, I still I still admit and accept that I'm just so grateful for my health crisis that I had. It's brought me so much more in tune with life, with the universe, with what's out there, with myself. So I'm so grateful for it. My relationship with life, I'd say, is pretty good. I have deeper, more more loving connections with more or less everyone I surround myself with, which can only be a good thing. Yeah, I'd say my relationship with life is pretty damn good at the moment.
That's
Thank you
amazing
for
to
asking.
hear. I love to hear that. That's beautiful, James. That's really, really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And then maybe to the last question. So usually when the hero returns home, basically, because this podcast, as I told you before, I usually have some introduction calls with the people I want to interview just to get them familiar with the concepts of the hero journey. And then when the hero usually comes home successfully, he brings back the wisdom that he or she collected and shares it with the world. Like the coming home process, as with you, is also like a journey in itself and like a process of integration. So now being where you are, what wisdom would you like to share that you have experienced during your journey? Like what is something that you, when you see a person struggle, or no matter where they are at the stage, what is the wisdom that you would like to share that you think could elevate them and helping them on their journey back to wholeness?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, I would say I'm not home yet, but if I was, I am currently sat physically in my house. But this journey, I'm going back home and leaving on multiple occasions. But I guess that makes the journey
Yeah, I mean,
just
it's a
as,
never-ending
just
journey anyways. You complete one cycle, you start a new one. That's what I learned. But
right.
just
Yeah,
think of where
absolutely.
you're right now.
The journey never ends. But up to this point in my journey, what would I say if I got home? Uh, I would say, uh, I'd say you're far more powerful than you think, and your thoughts and feelings and actions are far more important than you know. So I would say just be conscious of how you feel, how you think, and how you act day in day out as often as you can. Um, but yeah, I'd say we're powerful beings, beautiful, powerful, loving beings, and just realizing that, and then taking that information and that knowledge and taking that into every day, being conscious of how you act around people. I think that would be the hero. What did you say? It was a hero's return. I don't think I'm a hero. That's something I'd also say. I'd say I guess I'm shedding truth, which in a sense could be seen as a hero's.
We are all heroes.
Yeah, we're all heroes. Come on. But yeah, we're all God in an aspect. I think that's also quite a potent piece of information.
Mm.
God isn't outside of us. I mean, I don't know what God is per se, but there's an intelligence in all of us that you could draw a line to and say that could be seen as God or source or whatever. So I'd say, yeah, be conscious of your thoughts, be conscious of your actions, be conscious of your feelings, and just remember that God is within you. The source is within you. The quantum, beautiful, void, full source is within you. And just knowing that and taking that information with you on your day to day will reap unreal amounts of rewards, whether it's an intention you set based on a lack of health, or whether, and I think this is a beautiful place to come, where you don't have a health issue. You're not coming to the work in desperation to achieve something that without it you wouldn't be alive, like myself, and I'm grateful. I've come to the work and I do the work, of course. But if you can do this work without having those requirements and needs, the world's your oyster. You are source. You have unbelievably powerful abilities within you, and this work just helps you find that, and that's just a beautiful thing, I think.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of that. It was truly a pleasure to have you here. It was really a joy. And I think the greatest reflection I feel like I have to share it, and it might help others too. Is that sometimes I think like, listening to you, it makes me realize that sometimes I make this work much harder than it actually is. So
I,
thank you.
I do that as well, don't you worry.
So thank you so much for sharing your experience and just for your whole presence and for your being, and just thank you for letting us having an insight and then really drawing some more inspiration and light and strength out of that. That was really, really beautiful.
Thank you, Anne.
It was for me. It definitely was for me. So I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you
Thank
so much
you too.
for your time, and I will make sure to edit this podcast when it's the time and you have your NCS license out there. I'm gonna put it in the link down in the description box.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
All right. See you, James. Thanks. Bye.
See you later. Bye.